knew full well that they would have to testify. And that, Your Honor, again, was true courage, because I heard over and over again, Mr. Waters, again, you don't understand. I have to live there. You don't understand who you're messing with. But they still came forward, and that really was crucial to development of all these financial crimes, which ultimately not only exposed this long-standing scheme of how a lawyer can abuse the system, but really put in context everything else that happened through the course of Alec Murdaugh's life. Your Honor, I have what's been marked now as State's Exhibit 1 that I will hand up, and this is just a timeline of how the financial crimes developed throughout the course of this scheme. And as I described before, and again, I'm going to try to walk through this as quickly as I can, but the first thing that we had was that Alec ran into some financial trouble in 2008, 2009. We all know the recession happened. And after that, he had a number of early large recoveries. And it caused his partners and people around him, because the legitimate fees from those cases were so extensive, to believe that he ultimately had righted the ship. And he did take those legitimate fees, but he was also borrowing so much money, and he then started to steal from those large recoveries. And, Your Honor, the first one that is part of the state grand jury cases is Natasha Thomas and Hakeem Pinckney. And, Your Honor, there was a catastrophic accident there. It left Hakeem a quadriplegic. He ultimately passed away. And Mr. Murdaugh came to the hospital to offer to represent them. One of the things that he had done was had Russell Lafitte at Palmetto State Bank appointed as a conservator. And that became crucial to this particular scheme. And ultimately, when those recoveries came in, and they were quite extensive, he was able to steal some of those. And the next exhibit I have, Your Honor, that I would hand up. And, Your Honor, I would ask, not that first one, but this exhibit, we've redacted account numbers from it, but there is extensive financial information in there, and we would ask that these exhibits, which I think are important.
All right, we're going to hit the pause button again. We have to hit a break. Don't go anywhere. We'll go back to South Carolina right after this.
Alec Murdaugh, convicted double murderer, just accepted a plea deal from prosecutors.
How do you plead?
I plead guilty, Your Honor.
He stole the money from Tony Satterfield.
Over $1 million of his own client's settlements.
Why did you agree to that?
Because I trusted him.
This unbelievable fall from grace.
I was selfish, and I just took the money.
The Murdaugh Stolen Million sentencing. Live coverage today on Court TV.
9.
Back to court we go for the sentencing hearing for convicted killer Alec Murdaugh. This is the hearing for his financial crimes. And some of you have asked me on Twitter, why are we hearing about these facts? We've heard them before. Well, it is part of making the record that a prosecutor has to put the factual basis on the record to provide that there are sufficient facts to substantiate the plea. And they kind of diverted the acceptance of it until today so that all of the victims could be present. So that is why you are seeing this narrative by Creighton Waters, to get it all on the record to prevent the possibility of Alec Murdaugh appealing later on. Let's go back in.
And we would ask that these exhibits, which I think are important for Your Honor to see, but that they remain under seal this time just because they do have financial information in them.
All of them? Or just
Not the first one, but the present.
no objection?
All right, I'm going to hand up this exhibit right there. And Your Honor, this is the exhibit as it relates to Hakeem Pinkney. And what you see on that first page and on the second page is really the hard work that was done in this case. Because it's one thing to determine that a check went from where it was supposed to be and somehow ended up in Alec Murdaugh's world. But it was another thing to figure out exactly how that money was spent and how that money was dispersed. And ultimately, you can see here on that page that when Alec Murdaugh, and this would be on December 20th, 2011, stole the $309,581.46. That when we looked and traced how that money was spent, a large portion of it went to go to pay back a personal loan from Charles Lafitte, to pay his father, to pay the Hannah Plyler conservatorship, which is another conservatorship that Alec Murdaugh had set up in a case that he had, where he had Russell Lafitte named as a conservator. And then ultimately, he started to have, and Russell started to lend money from that conservatorship to Alec to keep Alec afloat, to keep him afloat on those many loans that he had with Palmetto State Bank that Russell Lafitte had given him. There's another conservatorship, Malik Williams, that substantial monies went to. But Your Honor, if you flip over to the last page of that exhibit, you'll see a disbursement sheet right here. And these are very indicative of how easy it was ultimately to steal. These disbursement sheets have the recovery amount at the top. They have the various sources, the insurance companies in there, and then they have the legal fees, which tended to be anywhere from 33 to 40% of, in this instance, a very, very large recovery. Costs and expenses and loans and medical bills. And then down at the bottom, there's just a simple thing that says disbursement to client, and it has Palmetto State Bank, $309,581.46. And based on those disbursement sheets that Alec Murdaugh would cause his staff to prepare, then the finance office at the firm would have those checks cut, as they were told to do by this man right there. And once he had that check cut to Palmetto State Bank, he would take it to Russell Lafitte at the bank, and then Russell, having a check in his hand made out to Palmetto State Bank, would then convert that money to Alec's benefit in the manner in which he said. And in many instances, it was to pay back loans that Russell Lafitte had either given Alec Murdaugh to keep him afloat from the Plyler conservatorship or from other actual bank loans, to the point where Alec had gotten so much in hock to Russell Lafitte that Russell Lafitte was in hock to Alec Murdaugh. And in many instances, these loans, particularly early on, were used to stop Alec Murdaugh's financial situation from falling apart and from all of those loans going into default, much less the fact of being exposed that Mr. Lafitte and Alec together had been loaning themselves money from a conservatorship meant for the benefit of two minor girls.
Did you say in hock or?
In hock, H-O-C-K.
In hock.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Your Honor, the first one, that being the compete me, that is Alec is pleading to a representative count for each victim, but that was 2022 GS 4702 count 1, breach of trust, 10,000 or more, and he's agreed to a 10-year penalty for that particular one. Your Honor, the next one that I'll hand up deals with Natasha Thomas. And this is stage 3 for purposes of this proceeding. And this one again, Your Honor, this was she was in the same particular accident, and there were two different thefts that were taken in this particular one. One of them was on December 20th, 2011, and that was for $325,000. Again, Mr. Murdaugh had Russell Lafitte appointed as conservator for Natasha Thomas, who was a minor at the time. And if we look on the last page of this exhibit, we will see an amount down at the bottom. There's disbursements to clients, and you see the various disbursements that are going out. But the last one says Natasha Thomas, Palmetto State Bank, for $325,000. And again, the staff does as they're told by Mr. Murdaugh, and they cut that check from the trust account for $325,000 made out to Palmetto State Bank. And Alec Murdaugh is then able to convert that money, and actually converts all $325,000 of it to pay back a loan from his father. Your Honor, that is 2022 GS 4701 count 1, to which he's pleading guilty related to Natasha Thomas. That's breach of trust, $10,000 or more, and he's agreed to a 10-year sentence on that one. Your Honor, also in this particular exhibit, we have and this was very typical, that a lien was held back to pay off, in this instance, Medicaid. And it was very common for plaintiffs' lawyers, this is very common, very accepted, and very usual, to hold back, give initial disbursements to clients, but then hold back monies to pay off medical liens and other liens that need to come out of that recovery. And it's very common, again, for them to then negotiate with those medical providers or whoever else, and then, if they can, get them to accept something less than the full amount. So if they can get them to accept 70%, then what they're supposed to do is then return that additional money to their client. Hey, great news, I'm a great lawyer. I managed to settle those liens for less, and here's an additional amount of money on top of what I've already given you that you weren't expecting. But what we found, of course, was that that became a very easy delta that would allow Alec Murdaugh to steal funds. And ultimately, we see that second theft from amounts that involved Natasha Thomas, ultimately did pay some liens, but instead of returning that money to Natasha Thomas, as Alec Murdaugh was supposed to do, instead he had another check cut to Palmetto State Bank and made out to Palmetto State Bank, took it to Russell Lafitte, and had that money converted for his own personal use, and pretty much had it converted to cash, and ultimately had it converted to cash, including $9,000 cash, which is obviously a very interesting number in that it's meant to stay under that $10,000 threshold. Your Honor, I mentioned before that he had Russell Lafitte appointed as a conservator, and they had been borrowing money from a different conservatorship. Alec had been Russell.
Great Waters making sure that record is complete. I want to turn things over to my friend Ted Rollins, who's going to take you through the rest of the hearing. Ted.
Good morning, Julie. Yeah, it's interesting to watch Alec having to sit there and listen, and this is just the beginning. Wait till the victims start to speak, and we also are expecting to hear from those attorneys as well. It's going to be a long day for Mr. Murdaugh. We'll watch it all. Stay with us.
Hello, Crime Spies. I am here. So here I thought this was going to be like some kind of quick thing. I'm busy. I'm actually working. I had to go back to work. Thankfully, I'm working at home. And I thought, well, I'll just throw this on and I'll listen to it and capture it for you. And it turns out that this is going to go on all day. So I am very quickly back here trying to get my work completed for the day, or at least for a while, so I can join you. I look like I've been beaten with a stick. But you're not here to see me. You are here to watch this. So this is the sentencing hearing for Alec Murdaugh for the financial crimes. He is expected to speak. I actually started just like recording it at the very beginning. Creighton Waters was talking. You know how much I'm not a big giant fan of his. But anyway, so and then he was going to speak, and then they started saying, oh, well, then they're going to have victim impact statements. I'm like, well, this recording is going to last forever. I must just go ahead and throw it up quick. So quick like a bunny, created this. I'm not using OBS because I'm busy working and I don't want to accidentally put up the, documents up on the screen. So anyway, here it is. So I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. For those of you who watched the fall of Minneapolis live stream I did last night, we talked about the documentary series. It's about 2 hours long. It was crowdfunded, so the fact that you do not have to pay for it to watch it. And in fact, when I watched it, when it came out about 12 days ago, I guess, 13 days, a couple weeks ago, when I watched it, I don't even think that I had to like input my, name and email address or anything like that. You just click on the link, because I am live streaming on YouTube. They won't let us redirect you, but I'll maybe add it to the ticker. Okay, it looks like we're going to come back. So I'm going to shut off the camera again, and I'm working as fast as I can to get this done. Of course, that's the beginning of the day. Like I said, I thought I'd just record it, but it's going to last quite a while. So if you're joining me, thank you so much. Actually, Rumble is... I went from like Rumble was growing really great, and then all of a sudden YouTube took off, and now we're back to YouTube is like Cricketville, and Rumble is doing great. So maybe while I got a second here, I wanted to thank Sandy R16. She started following me 3 hours ago on Rumble. STCWWG1WG all 2 days ago. Thank you so much. Where we go one, we go all. Arens 1 5 days ago. BJ Rob 05 9 days ago, and Wagner 195 12 days ago. So thank you so much. All right. I'm hurrying really quickly back here.
Top of the hour, welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Ted Rollins. We are covering 2 high-profile cases this morning. In South Carolina, convicted double murderer Alec Murdaugh in court for sentencing for stealing money from his clients. He pled guilty to 22 counts of financial crimes as part of the plea deal. He's expected to be sentenced to 27 years. Judge Newman has the final say, but it's expected that he'll go along with this. We'll go back in court in just a minute. We're also in Georgia. It's day 2 of opening statements in that RICO trial for rapper Young Thug. He and 5 other co-defendants faced charges of gang and racketeering charges. The jury heard openings from the state and one of the defense attorneys yesterday. The jury's expected to hear the rest of the openings today, including the one from the attorney representing Young Thug. The state says he was the ringleader in all of this. We'll have updates throughout the day from our Julia Janae. Let's now, though, head back to South Carolina for more of the Alec Murdaugh sentencing. We're picking it off with Creighton Waters right where we left off.
Russell had been loaning money to Alec Murdaugh from that conservatorship. Russell Lafitte had been loaning money to himself from that conservatorship, and that money needed to be paid back. And so ultimately, I'm going to hand out what's been marked as States 5. ultimately, he had yet another huge recovery, and that involved the case of Arthur Badger, whose family was in a catastrophic accident, severely injured his children, killed his wife. And Mr. Murdaugh told him the case would only be worth a certain amount. And during the course of this, and this was very common, Mr. Badger had to get money to pay loans. He had to pay his bills. And what we found in this particular case was that Mr. Murdaugh ultimately settled globally a lot of these claims and had the civil defense lawyers there allocate the money in a certain way so that he could ultimately hand a very large check to Mr. Badger, more in line with what he was expecting him to receive. But he structured so much of the money going into Arthur Badger's sort of part of the ledger that he was able to steal $1.325 million from that particular claim. And if you look at that first page, you'll see the tracing exhibit from the state grand jury and all the work that was done there. But you can see, for example, in one instance, he paid off a credit card balance that he had with this money over $150,000. He used this money also to pay back the conservatorship that I previously mentioned, that he was getting money loaned to him by Russell Lafitte for over $482,000. And those are just some of the expenditures that we see on this particular theft. The other thing is, that's very interesting, is you'll see at the very back, you'll see an email, and this is from Russell Lafitte to Alec Murdaugh, and he says, Alec, can you get Jeannie, who is the CFO at the law firm, to recut the check as follows? And then you can see some amounts that are down below there that were cut that way. And they were cut that way so that it could break up that money, and then that money could be used to give the illusion of regular payments, to really to fuse out a huge amount, like $1.325 million, in order that slowly, over a period of time, Alec could convert that money, and again, in large measure, to pay back loans that had come to him from that prior conservatorship. And again, throughout that, there were a number of loans that were cut Palmetto State Bank, and they were essentially cut in a manner that Russell Lafitte had Alec cut them that way, and then they were ultimately stolen all the way from February of 2013 through May of 2014. And so ultimately, it was a very involved scheme. Because it was such a large amount, they had to cut it up. They had to make it look like it was coming at different times from different sources. And that is how, over the course of that long period of time, Alec was able to steal that money through use of Palmetto State Bank. Your Honor, this is 2022 GS 4703, count 1, to which Alec is pleading to breach of trust over $10,000 and has agreed to a 10-year sentence. Next one I'll hand up to Your Honor, State's Exhibit 6. And this individual was Deon Martin. And Deon Martin was in a head-on collision with a drunk driver in 2012. He was on life support for a number of weeks, and a month after he was released, Alec Murdaugh called him and said, I'm going to help you, I'm going to represent you, and ultimately ended up settling the case without talking to him, ultimately covered up the paper so he couldn't really see what he was getting, but ultimately, like all of these, still gave Deon Martin very, very sizable funds. But if we look at this particular one, ultimately he was able to steal on October 7th, 2015, $338,056. Excuse me, $338,056.14. And if you look on the back page of that exhibit, you can see that there's a disbursement there. It says disbursement to Forge, and it has that very amount on there. And again, this is where we see the scheme start to change a little bit. After the Badger theft and how much detail had to be engaged in with those checks to Palmetto State Bank, with Russell Lafitte sending emails asking Alec to cut it up different ways, to have that money dispersed in different manners. That got to be very, very difficult. So what Alec Murdaugh changed his scheme, and what he did was he went to Bank of America and again opened up a account in the name of Richard Alexander Murdaugh, doing business as Forge, and ultimately was able to get those checks cut to what we call the fake Forge. And again, the staff didn't question it because the legitimate Forge Consulting, which also was very cooperative throughout this case in providing information, was a company that served as a consultant providing services and linking plaintiffs to annuities where they could structure their settlements where they would get regular payments. And so when he could get that money, make out Forge, all he had to do was get on a disbursement sheet the word Forge, get a trust account check cut from the firm trust account made out to Forge, and then take it down to Bank of America and deposit it and convert it from there. Your Honor, that was the first theft from Mr. Deon Martin, and I'm going to return back to him in a minute. But one of the things that we see paid off from that theft of $338,000 was a $169,000 balance on a credit card. Your Honor, the next one, and I'm going in chronological order, is Johnny Bush, and I'm going to hand out what's been marked as State's Exhibit 8. And I'm going to come back to Deon Martin in a minute. But this particular one was on June 9th, 2016. And Mr. Murdaugh is pleading guilty here for 2021 GS 4736, count 2 to computer crime, and he's agreeing to a 5-year sentence. And in this particular instance, Mr. Bush was a long-time friend of Mr. Murdaugh. He was in a car accident. He trusted Alexander Murdaugh. He mentioned that over and over again because Mr. Murdaugh referred to him as a brother. And anyway, Mr. Murdaugh settled the case without talking to Mr. Bush, and Mr. Bush signed the documents because, like he said, he trusted him. And ultimately, Mr. Murdaugh was able to get him to sign a disbursement sheet that had on it a disbursement to Forge for $95,000, and you can see that on the last page of this particular exhibit. And ultimately, again, that was in June of 2016 that he was able to steal that money from Mr. Bush. Go on to the next one. This is Exhibit 9. And Your Honor, this particular one would be in August 11th, 2016. This is 2021 GS 4731, count 1, to which Mr. Murdaugh is pleading to breach of trust $10,000 or more and agreeing to a 10-year sentence for that particular crime. And in this particular instance, again, he had a case where there were disbursements, but he had a lien put on the disbursement sheet. The lien just said the word Forge for $70,000, and ultimately, again, he was able to take that $75,000, deposit it into his fake Forge account, and then convert it to his own use. And a lot of that was cash. A lot of that was payment to employees that he had, payment on credit cards that he had, including a payment to own a credit card of over $21,000. Next one I'll hand up, Your Honor, is State's Exhibit 10. And this one is the case involving Jamie and Risher. And in this particular instance, Mr. Murdaugh is pleading to 2021 GS 4737, count 1, breach of trust $10,000 or more, to which he's agreed to a 10-year sentence. And in this instance, he had been in Iraq. His family, Mr. Risher's family, had a long connection with the Murdaughs, and he was injured. He had a younger sister who was killed. And he, because of Mr. Murdaugh's name, because of the long family association, trusted Mr. Murdaugh and went to him for help. And ultimately, Mr. Murdaugh, again, was able to get him to sign a disbursement Actually, in this particular instance, if you look at the last page, you see that there is no signature on there for Mr. Risher. It just has Mr. Murdaugh's signature, but it has on there a disbursement to Forge for $90,000. And in many instances, that's what would happen. Sometimes Mr. Murdaugh would get the clients to sign these disbursements, and they didn't realize that those disbursements were on there that he was going to steal. Other times, the records would reflect a disbursement that was never signed by the client. But ultimately, Mr. Murdaugh gets, based on this disbursement sheet, the staff to conduct, to cut a check from the trust account for $90,000 made out to Forge. He's then able to take that money, put it in his fake Forge account, and convert it to his personal use. On top of that, Mr. Murdaugh also misappropriated $5,504.94 in case expenses, which he billed to Austin Aviation for a trip to New York, a private plane service, limo service, and meals that ultimately he was able to bill to Mr. Risher as if they were legitimate case expenses for this case, when instead that was a personal trip for Mr. Murdaugh, a luxury trip, which he then billed to a client and stole that money. All right. We're going back now to Mr. Martin. I'm going to hand up State's Exhibit 7. I mentioned Deon Martin before, and now we've moved to October 11th, 2016. He had already stolen, as I said before, over $338,000 from Mr. Martin over a year earlier. But now he's back, and in this instance, he gets a check cut from fake Forge, made out for $45,000. And again, this had been part of money that was held in trust, supposedly to satisfy liens, but Mr. Murdaugh was able to then convert that money since it remained in the trust account, and on October 11th, 2016, again, he converted that $45,000. But very interesting, Your Honor, if you look on the last page of this one related to Deon Martin on the disbursement sheet, you will see that at the top it says, under the recovery amounts, it has structured for annuity directly to Michael Gunn and has $500,000. That's a phantom recovery. That doesn't exist. He just put that number on there, and by doing so was essentially able to generate on his books $200,000 of attorney's fees. That's a phantom. It's a phantom, but it's credited to him on his book. So ultimately, the firm was victimized in this regard because in the end, it works out to about $185,000 in extra year-end bonus that went to him because of that phantom recovery that was on there. Going to the next matter. Hand up States 11. And we're back to the Pinckney matter that I mentioned before, that catastrophic wreck. In that particular case, Mr. Murdaugh represented Hakeem Pinckney. He had his friend Corey Fleming representing Hakeem's mother, Pamela Pinckney. Because she was driving, they were allied, but she still had to be named as a defendant. And ultimately, there remained in Corey Fleming's trust account $89,133.44. And even though the disbursements had happened in that case years and years before, even though Mr. Fleming had
it all from the beginning, getting it all on the record and making Alec endure a long day in the courtroom. We'll get a break here, get you back in for more right after this. You won't miss a bit.
Alec Murdaugh, convicted double murderer, just accepted a plea deal from prosecutors.
How do you plead?
I plead guilty, Your Honor.
He stole the money from Tony Satterfield.
Over $1 million of his own client's settlements.
Why did you agree to that?
Because I trusted him. This unbelievable fall from grace.
I was selfish, and I just took the money.
The Murdaugh Stolen Million Sentencing. Live coverage today on Court TV.
Okay, here we are back again. I'm going to really quick look and see if I should pull the feed off of YouTube. Again, I am working and thought I would just record it and post it on my channel for later. And then after starting to listen to it, realized that it's really long. Like there's some victim impact statements, etc. So let me just look and see if it would be better. I'm going to pull it off of this. Just a moment.
And this is the final Satterfield check, Your Honor. Again, over a year has gone by from
I don't know. I didn't think of this
the
before.
$2.9 million check from that $3.8 million settlement. Again, the Satterfield family is unaware that a single dime has been recovered. And ultimately, there's still money remaining in the Moss-Kuhn and Fleming trust account.
I don't think we'll have to deal with
So,
commercials. I'm sorry. I should have thought of that before.
In October again of 2020, has a check cut by Corey Fleming from the Moss-Kuhn and Fleming trust account for $118,000 made out to just a single word forge and delivered to him, which he then converts to his own use. You can see cash withdrawals of over $22,000. You can see over $28,000 to Eddie Smith, as well as other expenditures. And this, of course, is around the time also that they then have the stipulation of dismissal signed in the Satterfield case that doesn't have the caption. They do not advise the attorneys for either Nautilus or the prior insurance company.
Somebody's phone is ringing.
Instead, Corey Fleming signs it, and he has Alec Murdaugh, the defendant, not the defense attorney, but the defendant himself, sign that stipulation dismissal in conjunction with having this forged check cut to Mr. Murdaugh for $118,000. Your Honor, that is 2021 GS 4730 count 8, to which he's also pleading to money laundering $100,000 or more and agreeing to a 20-year sentence.
I bet Creighton Waters is taking such pleasure in going over all of this.
Next one is
Alex
State
is
19.
expected to speak.
This is the estate of Sandra Taylor. This one really gets to me, and her mother, Elise Mallory, testified. Her daughter was killed by a drunk driver, leaving behind 3 minor children. And I've talked to her extensively, and she went to Mr. Murdaugh because she heard he was the best in town. And he kept telling her and lowering over and over again how much the case was worth. And if there ever was a more acute example of trust, it was Miss Mallory and Mr. Murdaugh. She put this case in his hands, and he kept coming back and saying that the case was worth less and less and less, until eventually he told her that the case was only going to be worth $30,000, $10,000 for each one of those children. And she believed him. Because like many people, $30,000 is a lot of money. The reality is that Mr. Murdaugh, with his insatiable need for cash, settled that case for $183,528 because he needed the money. And then he had a disbursement sheet that wasn't signed by Miss Mallory, executed, in which he put on there attorney's fees of $30,000. You can see that on the last page. And then had the rest of the money, $152,866, made out to Forge, and then converted that money to his own benefit. And that was on November 30th, 2020. $23,500 of that was cash withdrawals for his benefit. $29,000 went to C.E. Smith, and then more went to other versions of that name. Paid $20,000 on a credit card. Miss Mallory, those children, like the Satterfields, were also the most prime example of trust in this case. The people that trusted him more than anyone, the Satterfields and Miss Mallory, like the Satterfields, she didn't get one thin dime of that money. And Mr. Murdaugh even went so far as to go back to the firm and say, hey, I feel bad that I wasn't able to get that much from Miss Mallory. Can we refund the $30,000 to her? Because he told her that. He said, I can only get $30,000 in this case, and because, out of the goodness of my heart, I'm not going to take a legal fee. That's what he told her. Out of the goodness of my heart, I'm not going to take a legal fee. I'm just going to get you that $30,000. But the problem was he'd already dispersed the money. He'd already dispersed the $30,000 to the firm. And he went back to the firm and said, and telling them a different lie, telling them, hey, I would like to just refund that $30,000. I don't want to take a fee. Just refund that to her. Obviously what he was going to do was then give her the $30,000, which is what he had promised her was going to be the recovery all along. But the firm was like, no, the fees are paid. No, we're not doing that. And so Miss Mallory never got one dime. For that crime, Mr. Murdaugh is pleading to 2021 GS 4738, count 2, money laundering, $100,000 or more. And he is agreeing to that, to a 7-year sentence that is consecutive to the 20-year sentence of 2021 GS 4730, count 5. And those would, again, be the lead sentences for the total of 27 years at 85% time as a result of this plea here today. Your Honor, our next exhibit, Exhibit 20. In this particular instance, this was another instance in which Mr. Murdaugh was able to steal fees from the firm. This particular matter, he represented the individual, and ultimately he had cut 2 disbursement sheets. Number 1, at the very last page of this exhibit, in the disbursement sheet, he had the MPED attorney's fee, and then in parentheses the word Forge for $83,333.33. Your Honor, that was from May 12th.
I think it's pretty safe to say that by naming the country Forge,
that particular fee made out to Forge instead of going into the firm as it should. I mean, it was made out to fake Forge, and Alec again was able to convert
every lie is a
money
grain of truth, correct?
Cash withdrawals, payments to associates, the standard things that we see. He also had a second disbursement sheet cut, in which it said Forge on it, $91,867.50. That check was cut on December 16th, 2020. And again, ultimately, those were cut from the client trust account. Should have represented legal fees, but instead were diverted by Mr. Murdaugh into his Forge account and converted to his personal use. And it's that last sheet, Your Honor, that where it says attorney's fees forge. That, along with one of the ones I'm about to talk about next, the Ferris matter, or the matter involving Chris Wilson, those were two of the things that the firm had started to notice as everything started to come apart. And Your Honor, of course, has heard about the confrontation, the discussions between Jeannie Seckinger and Annette Griswold and Mr. Murdaugh about where the Ferris fees were. But the other thing that had caught staff's attention, that had caught Jeannie Seckinger's attention, was this Hirschberger matter and whether or not some fees had been diverted there. And it was not until months after the murders that a couple of things happened at the same time. The firm, Jeannie Seckinger, was looking back at this Hirschberger matter, concerned about what that was. Around that same time, Annette Griswold found the actual Ferris check that had been made out to Mr. Murdaugh instead of the firm. And what I'm going to talk about here in a minute, Thomas Moore, they started to look around, and that led them to identify the initial fake forge matters that led to them confronting Alec, terminating him, announcing that he had been stealing money, to which he's admitting today. And of course, the side of the road followed not long after that. Your Honor, for that, the Hirschberger matter, he's pleading to 2022 GS 4724 count 3, false pretenses, and agreeing to a 10-year sentence. Next exhibit I will hand up is Exhibit 21. Your Honor, this one is the matter involving Thomas Moore. In this instance, he was representing Mr. Moore, who had been injured in a wreck. Mr. Moore is a trooper who had been injured in the line of duty. Ultimately, Mr. Murdaugh had arranged for a recovery, did not advise Mr. Moore, did not tell him money had come in, and had a disbursement sheet cut for $125,000, you can see on the last page. Ultimately forged Mr. Moore's signature on there, and then had that dispersed to fake forge. This was on January 29th, 2021. And ultimately, you can see on the first page how a lot of that money was being dispersed, including to cash withdrawals, various iterations of the name Eddie Smith, the cash services business for $14,000, and other matters as well. For that, Your Honor, he's pleading to 2021 GS 4727 count 2, money laundering, 20 years or more. Again, all of these 20-year money launderings are 85% offenses, and ultimately he's pleading guilty to that one as well. Next hand up, State's Exhibit 22. Your Honor, this is the matter involving Chris Wilson. And as Your Honor will recall, Mr. Murdaugh had split this case with his friend Chris Wilson and another attorney. They had tried the case in, I believe, December of 2020, and bench tried it and had received a sizable recovery in the early months of 2021. Mr. Murdaugh, again, was in a desperate position needing cash and could not have these fees go into the firm because, again, the way the firm payment structure worked would be that he would not receive the majority of that money until the end of 2021, when the firm paid its overhead, settled up on its agreement, and then split up the remaining monies based on each attorney's individual contribution to that year's revenue. And ultimately, he had on March 10th, 2021, a check cut for $192,000, March 23rd, 2021, $375,000, and April 20th, 2021 for $225,000, and had those all made out from the Chris Wilson's trust account representing the fees that should have gone to the firm, and had those made out to him personally and deposited it and spent for his own personal use. And it was those particular checks that led to, when the expenses came in, led to the whole inquiry from the firm PMPED back to Chris Wilson's office on where are the fees? Where are the fees? We got the expense check. And Your Honor, of course, has heard testimony about that issue percolating and the fact that it was even discussed on June 7th, 2021. And after June 7th, 2021, of course, no one was really paying attention to those matters anymore for a number of months. And one of the things that Mr. Murdaugh was able to do was borrow money from a law partner, and was able to borrow money from the bank, and got $600,000 and sent that back to Chris Wilson, and then told Chris Wilson a lie. Pretty much said, hey, I got some things moving around. I'm going to send you the $600 right now. I'll get you the $192. But can you go ahead and tell the firm that all that money is in your trust account, which would solve the problem, because then that would stop the inquiry. And so ultimately that happened. Chris Wilson sent an email and said, those monies are in my trust account. And when, of course, everything crashed and burned following Labor Day of 2021, Mr. Wilson confronted Mr. Murdaugh, and Mr. Murdaugh admitted that he had been stealing and admitted that he didn't have that $192,000. And ultimately, those were the basis for the indictments in 2021 GS 4728, counts 1, which represents the diversion of the fees from the firm of $792,000, pleading to false pretenses on that for a 10-year sentence, and then count 7 representing that 192, not to double count it, but representing the 192 that he defrauded his friend Chris Wilson out of, and that's false pretenses to which he's agreeing to a 10-year sentence. Your Honor, additionally, Mr. Murdaugh is pleading to 2022 GS 4710, count 1, and that is a criminal conspiracy, Your Honor, between him and...
I think it's safe to say he's not going to get out of jail at all, just based on these financial crimes.
The dates are from October 2013
I still
through
think
February
the jury got it wrong on the...
And ultimately, those deal with the conversion of a lot of these funds from whatever source through checks to Curtis Eddie Smith. They're related to a lot of illegal purposes, including narcotics. That total being at least $2,413,754.79. Finally, Your Honor, Mr. Murdaugh is pleading to 2022 GS 4734, count 9, and that represents his willful evasion of taxes for all of this ill-gotten gains, and that total from all those years is $619,391. Those are the crimes to which he's pleading here today, and the result of the exhaustive investigation that's been done here. And Your Honor, There were 101 offenses.
101.
People might say,
There's 9 counts.
why are we resolving this in this manner? And the reason for that, there are a lot of reasons for that. Ultimately, we're having here a guilty plea in which Mr. Murdaugh is admitting his guilt, and we have gone and been able to detail the manner in which the system was abused. Mr. Murdaugh is waiving his appellate rights, and within the law, his post-conviction rights, which means for this plea here today, there is certainty, as much as the law will allow, that he will serve at least 85% of that 27-year sentence if Your Honor ultimately accepts this result. Whatever happens with any other litigation, we ensure with this result here today that Mr. Murdaugh will stay in state prison for what is most likely the remainder of his life. And that's aside from the 2 life sentences that Your Honor previously imposed upon him. But we have to remember that this result here today is not for the murders. This result here today is for those white-collar offenses. And 27 years at 85%, Your Honor, is more than anyone can think of, state or federal, that someone has received for white-collar offenses. It's more than Enron. It's more than WorldCom. It's more than Carolina Investors. It represents a singular accountability for white-collar offenses, the likes of which no one can find another example, state or federal, throughout the country. It spares a lot of these smaller counties what Colleton County already had to endure, and that is the expense in some of these smaller counties with less resources of these trials. It spares these victims those trials. It gives them accountability here today. And means that ultimately we can be assured that there is an accountability for Mr. Murdaugh solely for the white collar, unlike anything anyone has seen. And we can be assured that he's not leaving state prison. He's staying in South Carolina State Prison where he belongs, because these were South Carolina crimes committed in South Carolina courtrooms, just like this one here, and South Carolina state court actions before South Carolina judges, just like you, Your Honor. Those are some of the reasons why this is a unique result, an appropriate result. Because although Mr. Murdaugh is facing an accountability just for white-collar offenses, unlike perhaps anyone ever, the course of conduct that we've identified through all of those exhibits, lasting for all that time period, involving so many victims in amounts that may have been insignificant to him but were massive to them, the wreckage that he has left through the legal system, the distrust of the legal system that he has caused, deserve a singular accountability more than anyone has ever heard of. And that is why this sentence is appropriate. Ultimately, the firm, PMPED, who I mentioned, has been very cooperative with this investigation. The bank has been very cooperative with this investigation. And we've indicted in investigating this case, we've indicted the individuals that the grand jury found probable cause that there was criminality, which is a different thing from civil liability. And Your Honor knows there's all kinds of civil actions and civil matters that still remain associated with the wreckage and the morass that this man has caused. And that is not, all of that is not for this courtroom here today. This is to resolve criminality. And ultimately, the firm has paid net amounts back to the victims that I've discussed here today. And that is not to say that those victims may still have claims outstanding. It is only to say that they have paid back net amounts. And in many instances, that would be the exact amount that Alex stole from them. Not dealing with other issues that may be out there, like the loss of the money for all that period of time, or the appropriateness of attorney's fees or things like that. Those are for a different forum.
So they're going to
The firm has, though, cooperated. The firm has.
They're going to ask for
net amounts back
appreciated
to
value.
So that none of them.
I mean, you can only squeeze so much from a turnip, right? I think he's pretty.
Doesn't mean that anyone was ever made whole by what this man has done, because I don't know that that's possible.
I don't think Creighton Waters can actually, like, prosecute Alex
Ultimately,
enough.
Your Honor,
I think he just wants to just keep going.
I want to hand up a couple more exhibits.
If you're joining me over on Kick, thank you so much. I am intending on having some kind of like live stream prize giveaway once I get to 75 people over there, so please make sure to follow.
That has been provided by the law firm.
Oh my God, I should show you my patriotic earrings for the ladies.
Monies that they have paid, those net amounts, other costs to them. And again, this is not to settle on a restitutionary figure. This is just to give Your Honor an example of some of the expenditures that are out there. And I've discussed this with the defense. I'm giving these figures up to Your Honor, but assuming that this plea gets accepted here today, our plan is to ultimately work with the defense and with all the various parties to come up with a figure that is appropriate for a restitutionary amount, even though we all know that in the end, the well is dry, and the well was bled dry by this man.
Well, I'm sure any assets he had has been liquefied to pay for his defense, Great Waters. Don't need to be Columbo to figure that one out.
This next exhibit,
I think it's safe to say Creighton Waters has a turd the size of Texas
representing the loss to the state
for
of
Alex
South Carolina
Murdaugh.
for tax revenue.
It's a pretty safe assumption.
This next exhibit, which was an exhibit at the murder trial as well, Exhibit 25, represents the confession of judgment to the Satterfields for $4,305,000.
I think it's my understanding that Gloria Satterfield's family, like, they were completely satisfied with the fact that she fell down the stairs. It's my understanding.
And the final two exhibits are sort of summaries of some of that related to the criminality in this courtroom today. And again, I want to be clear. The criminality in this courtroom today is to address the victims for which there were indictments, and not to address all the claims that may be out there, all the claims that some of these victims may have, all the claims that the parties may have with each other. That's not the purpose of a criminal proceeding, but this is an effort for today's purposes, for acceptance of this plea, for exposure to the world of the extent of damage wrought by Alec Murdaugh to put some numbers on it.
Okay, Creighton, go for it.
That first example, if we look at those various factors that I've identified, we see a total of $12,425,254.32.
Should I get out my calculator? I had it here.
There have been some offsetting claims as it relates to the firm, and if you account for those, we're looking at $8,548,488.26.
So what are we at, 21 million? Anybody else hear that click, click, click sound, or is that just me?
To say numbers like that out loud, to detail these involved schemes for this period of time, is unique and unprecedented, and calls for a unique and unprecedented sentence of 27 years. Your Honor, I do have a number of victims and their representatives who would like to speak, and I believe our first one would be Eric Bland. I believe the mic right there is working.
Blandy!
This time,
oh,
permission,
goody.
Allow these victims to address the court.
He's also got a turd sideways the size of Texas.
Take a 10-minute recess.
Okay, we got a 10-minute recess. Blandy. All right. Welcome, Crime Spies. I hope you had a nice Thanksgiving. We are watching the... Move my camera. Again, I was working and I saw that this was on. Hey, you wrong. I was just going to say, I hope you had a wonderful, for those of you in the United States, I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. There's a very short, actually, I can show it to you. Hold on. While we walk out. I meant to do, we took a bunch of pictures. I just haven't gotten them yet. My brother has a, here, let me just find it for you. It's kind of funny. It's very quick. Or can I not find it? One moment. Now, pay close attention to his face. Let's see, where's the volume? Oh no. Do we have no volume over here? Where's the volume? Where's the volume? Oh, here. Let me just make sure. Please hold. So yeah, I was busy working. Oh, you can see it. Okay, here. This is funny. We had a great Thanksgiving, me and Sam. Yeah. Gobble, gobble. Hope you had Look at his face at the very, very end. Me and Sam. Yeah. Gobble, gobble. You see? Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Me. Okay, that's enough of that. That was a little loud. That's my very handsome son. He's going to be 21 in February, day before Valentine's Day. It's so funny watching his face at the end. Oh, we have fun. We have fun. So yes, you wrong. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving from me and Sam. I didn't get a chance to do one with all the kids. Like I said, we have pictures, but I haven't uploaded those yet. So yeah, I was busy working, and then I saw this was on. I thought, oh, I'll just record it. And So that didn't really work the way I planned. But anyway, so I thought, oh, I'll go ahead and record it. Well, then I realized that it was going to be like super long. I thought I'll just record it. It's probably going to be quick and I'll upload it. And then they're like, oh, we're going to have victim impact statements, yada, yada, yada. And I thought, oh no. So I quick set up a live stream. We were pulling the feed from Court TV, and then I found this like local smaller channel. So you wrong. How was your? Hope you had a great Thanksgiving from me and Sam. I hope you. My kids don't like turkey. No matter how many times I tell them that, no matter how many times I tell them that, it basically tastes like chicken, uh, they don't believe me. So I ended up making a lasagna in a crock pot to have on the side. And then I got, let's see what this sounds like. Some chill hop. We ended up getting there. Oops. I don't know if I like that. That sounds. I don't know if that's any better. So we ended up getting there, and my dad and stepmother, they had just gotten like a new oven, a new refrigerator, a new dishwasher, the whole kitchen appliances thing. Well, their super fancy friggin' oven only got up to, I forget what she said, like 325 degrees or something. And because I usually bring my ginger snap strudel sweet potatoes, although you're supposed to use yams. Yams are better. They're a little bit more red. Hello, Beto Riviera on Twitch, or not Twitch, Kick. Welcome, 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 welcome. The court has a 10-minute break. Welcome, welcome, Beto Rivera. Yeah, so I normally bring that. And then this year I decided to bring, like I said, lasagna, but I made it in a crock pot because when I talked to my stepmother, she said that they were having problems with their oven. So normally we are from Ecuador. Okay, so I don't know. Do they speak Spanish in Ecuador? Buenas tardes. No, buenos dias. Buenas tardes. Well, I don't know what time. You're probably buenos dias. Hola. I don't know. Okay, so usually, and then I like put marshmallows around the edge of it. So it's like a ginger snap strudel crust or topping. So you make the sweet potatoes, you mix in a little maple syrup and some heavy cream and butter, real healthy stuff. And, you can't overmash those potatoes or they turn icky. So cooked those, and the potatoes were gigantic. They were so humongous. I thought these are never ever going to bake, but they actually did pretty good. And the trick with sweet potatoes is to make sure to peel them like as they're still warm. The longer you let them cool off, the harder it is to get that peel off. So you can just like peel it off. Maybe I should have made a video. And then you bake that for a while, and then you put the ginger snap strudel on the top, bake that for like 20 minutes or so, just till it browns. And then like the last 5 minutes or so, put little mini marshmallows around the edge because the kids like mini marshmallows. And so I had a couple problems. For starters, the store did not have ginger snaps. Thank you, Joe Biden, because the store doesn't have hardly anything half the time you're there, except for plant-based garbage. So I thought, oh, well, here is a package of like ginger, what do they call it? Ginger snap cookie mix. So all you have to do is add like an egg and like a tablespoon of water and some butter, more butter. And I thought, oh, well, this actually might work out better. Nope, it did not. I ended up having to get up Thanksgiving morning because I like to make this stuff the day before, let it sit overnight, bake it in the morning, stick it in the car, and then go to, Thanksgiving, and then just quick brown the stuff on the top. And then it's nice and hot. I hate cold food. So I ended up having to wake up Thanksgiving morning and actually make all the ginger snaps from the ginger snap cookie mix. Then had to let them cool. Then had to commence making the ginger snap strudel, which is basically crushing them in one of those counter mixers, crushing them and then adding very cold butter, take a stick of butter, cube it. I think it's half a stick of butter, cube it, but it has to be cold to mix in. And then you mix in a little tiny bit of flour. And then that's what the strudel is made out of. Oh my God, those ginger snaps took longer than making the sweet potatoes and baking and, whatnot. Okay, so there was that. Then I made green bean, the French onion, green bean, cream of mushroom soup, because my kids love that. They will eat the whole entire thing all by themselves. So I thought, well, I better bring one of these as like an extra, just in case they have it and the kids scarf the whole thing down. So then, like I said, then I made the lasagna because my kids don't like turkey and they love my lasagna. Well, I don't like using those no-bake lasagna noodles because I think they get kind of gross. It's always they soak up too much of the good meat sauce. So I like to make regular old lasagna noodles and then use that. And then the trick with lasagna is letting it maybe bake it halfway, just a little bit, and then stick it in the fridge overnight and then commence baking in the morning. That's the trick, because then all the stuff and it's perfect. Actually, lasagna was the very first thing I made my ex-husband on our very first, he came over to my house and I made dinner. That's what hooked him, I'm pretty sure. So, I made those, and then I ended up cooking them too much and had to throw them out. What I had left were no-bake lasagna noodles. So I ended up having to suck it up and make that. Now, it did turn out pretty good. Not as good as I would like it. And then I had to make it in the crock pot because, again, their oven only got up to 325 degrees. So I wanted to make sure to make everything. So maybe all I had to do was a quick 5-minute under the broiler, which is what I ended up doing. And it turned out good. And then I made an extra of the green bean and sweet potatoes for my ex-husband because he was having Thanksgiving dinner. Then the best thing that happened for Thanksgiving was one of the triplets. Triplets just turned 17 in August. One of the triplets got her driver's license. I think it was in January. She just bought a new car. It's a little Ford, a SUV, a small SUV. It's a burgundy color. It's so nice. It's got the rear camera thing. I think it's 2014 or something. See, my ex's dad is a used car dealer. Oh my God. So I didn't have to drive. Wasn't that wonderful? That's the first time in 20 some years I haven't had to drive to the holidays. So that was awesome. And she's a really good driver. It's far. It's almost an hour to get there. You got to go all the way from southwest suburbs of Minneapolis to the northeast suburbs. So kind of hairy. So that was awesome. I got to Thanksgiving and I was looking for, it dawned on me like, I think it was before we ate. Maybe it was after we ate. I'm like, holy crap, I'm not driving. I can drink. I'm like, Dad, where's your alcohol? He's looking at me like, what? I'm like, it's been 20 years since I've been able to have a cocktail at the holidays. Where's your booze? He goes, well, I think there's some over there on the wine shelf. I said, Dad, I'm just kidding. So that was that. So yes, it was very blessed and very good. Felt like it was kind of early this year. Sometimes it's like Thanksgiving comes and then it's like Christmas, boom, right away. So it gives us a little bit of time. I do have like a fiber optic Christmas tree behind me just because I thought, well, maybe I should have something. So anyway, so this morning I was working and I figured I'd just like record this. And then after listening to them talking, I realized, holy crap, this is going to last like all day. So the beginning of this live stream, I was trying to finish up. And actually, to be honest with you, I am probably not going to be able to finish what I was working on for work because this is going to take too long. But that's okay. We're okay with that. What else can I? Oh, so yesterday. Last night we did. It ended up being almost 2-hour live stream. There's a brand new documentary out called The Fall of Minneapolis. And it was produced and directed, and actually the gal who stars in it, Liz Collin, she's a friend of mine's wife. She's a former anchor from our local CBS channel. And she and the producer, J.C. Shea, were interviewed about a week. Well, it was the day before the documentary was released on Megyn Kelly's show. Well, over the weekend and a few times last week, I was like mentioning, hey, this person, you should really check out this new documentary because everything we were told about George F. was basically like a scam. They just trimmed it down to feed their narrative. So anyway, so I told Bob after I watched it the day it came out. I told Bob, his wife should be commended. I mean, she ended up getting, I don't know if they just harassed her so much or she ended up actually getting fired from CBS. She now anchors on the local independent news channel, Alpha News. So Alpha News is the ones that collaborated with her and JC. It's almost 2 hours long. She wrote a book, and then this is the documentary based on the book. So last night I was just gonna quickly kind of peruse through, their interview with Megyn Kelly, and then direct you over to it's thefallofminneapolis.com is where you can go. YouTube doesn't want me to redirect you, so I'm gonna have to put it on the screen somehow. And it ended up being almost 2 hours. It was really, really good. So if you have a chance in your copious free time, underneath the video on the Rumble side, I actually put in the description box the Megyn Kelly interview with Liz and J.C. Shea if you want to watch it without my commentary. And then also under Rumble is the link to the Fall of Minneapolis movie, documentary. Full disclosure, one of the guys that's interviewed in there is the former Minneapolis police officer I dated for 3 years. I did not know he was going to be in it. I was watching it going, oh, That guy sounds familiar because, like, you could hear him before he started talking. So he's in it quite a bit. He's actually, Megyn Kelly actually mentions his name. That's kind of funny. He's married now. So anyway, if you have a chance, make sure to take a look at it. Bob and Liz, I'm sure, are super, super busy because the movie just came out a couple weeks ago, documentary. But if you would be interested in me asking them to come on a live stream for an interview or just some commentary, I'm pretty sure if I asked, they would do that for me. I have not asked yet, but if there's any interest, make sure to write it in like the comment underneath. And then if we get enough people saying, yeah, I'd love to watch that. Live streams are better because people can ask questions. And Bob used to be the former Police Federation president. I'm pretty sure he had over 30 years in. Because some of the other officers I know that were in the documentary had like 28 years in, which means it must have been super bad. Because most police officers, like, to get your pension, you want to get to at least 20 years. But if you get to 30 years, that's the most percentage of pension you get. And it just got so bad. Jason Reimer, at the very end of it, he's in like a blue shirt. He had said at the very end, kind of described that his last call before he decided to retire early, take early retirement, his last call was very similar situation. This humongous, massive guy hopped up on drugs, and them, not wanting to be the same, have the same fate as Derek Chauvin and all the others. Shocking what happened. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, all of those. People had that 8-minute, 46-second or whatever it was thing. Well, what they didn't tell you was the fact that it was 36 seconds. Oh, here they come. It's 36 seconds before they called the dispatch asking for a code 3, which is lights and sirens, get here as fast as you can, we got an emergency. 36 seconds. So while they were sitting there, they were waiting. The fire and rescue was just blocks away. They could have been there super fast. The dispatch did not send them. And then the ambulance they sent got lost. So that's why it took them, 9 minutes to get to the scene. So, like I said, I have my tinfoil hat over here. I had my tinfoil hat on.
Mr. Bland?
Tinfoil hat was right again. Okay, I'll be quiet. Okay, so this is Blandy. He is the attorney for Mallory Beach's family. He's got a turd the size of Texas for the Murdaugh family as well.
Families that I represent and my partner Ronnie Richter represents, just want to thank you. I also want to thank Attorney General Alan Wilson and Assistant Attorney General Creighton Waters, who is just a tremendous ambassador of justice. They've had a dogged pursuit of Alex Murdaugh in these cases, both the financial and obviously the murder cases, and Creighton is just a tremendous public servant. This day, Your Honor, was coming for 2 years, and we're happy it's here today. I just want you to know that we are satisfied that this is a very, very strong sentence that has been agreed to by the parties. It sends a clarion bell signal to not only attorneys, but to anybody who wants to victimize the vulnerable. This was predatory behavior. This wasn't Enron, it wasn't WorldCom, it wasn't stealing money from faceless people, from shareholders. This was Alex Murdaugh stealing money from those that were closest to him. Gloria Satterfield, who broke bread with him and his family for 22 years, helped raise his kids. Jordan Jenks, that you'll hear from, lifelong friend since they were 8 years old, grew up, played ball together. This is close theft. This is the unicorn of all thefts. And, you know, he's on the Mount Rushmore of all criminals. He hit for the cycle. You know, he's convicted of money laundering, convicting of conspiracy, convicting of fraud, and most importantly, hit the home run. He was convicted of double murder. This is somebody that has tarnished our legal profession and tarnished our state. And, you know, we spent the past 2 years focusing on Mr. Murdaugh, but today is when we focus on the victims and the impact that his actions have had on victims. I met you for the first time at the bond hearing in October of 2021. I had never had the honor of appearing before you. And during that hearing, I said to you that Mr. Murdaugh needs to drink from the same cup of justice that every other criminal defendant has to drink from in our state. And I think today he's getting that full cup. It's served hot. And I'm very proud of what our state has done. But now let's focus on the victims. My partner Ronnie and I have had the pleasure of representing Tony Satterfield and Brian Harriet, along with the siblings of Gloria Satterfield. We've represented Alicia and Hannah Plyler, two sisters that you've heard about that were victimized by Alex Murdaugh. Jordan Jenks. We represented Sandra Manning. Nobody ever heard of Sandra Manning. She was the sister of Gloria Satterfield. $28,000 was missing. She was also a victim of Alex Murdaugh. We've represented Blake Hodge. Now, we've heard a lot of cases that talk about money theft, but there's a whole slew of other cases out there that deal with Mr. Murdaugh taking their cases. Blake Hodge was a paraplegic, and guess what he didn't do? He didn't file their cases on time, and case was lost on the statute of limitations. Those are victims too. We've represented Melvert Edwards, who's the father of Hakeem Pickney. We've talked a lot about Mrs. Pickney and Hakeem, but Hakeem had a father, Melvert Edwards, and there are some issues that concern that. So now I'm going to focus on Gloria Satterfield, because that was the trial that we would be doing yesterday. We were going to start this trial. And Gloria, you know, I get very frustrated when I hear that she was just a housekeeper. She was so much more than that. I think Alex would agree she was so much more than that. She helped raise their kids, of Maggie and Alex's kids, Paul and Buster. She was a good woman. She was a good mother to Brian and Tony. And Alex exploited that woman, the woman who was in his house, the woman who helped raise his kids. He exhibited this type of predatory behavior where these people are not as educated as he was and is as a former lawyer. And he knew that they had something valuable. And he believed that their cases were his cases instead of the cases belonging to the client. So I'm going to introduce Brian Harriet. I'm going to introduce Tony Satterfield to the court and to everybody here. They're wonderful kids. They're Gloria's kids. Brian is a wonderful man, but he's a vulnerable adult. And Alex Murdaugh took advantage of this vulnerable adult. And it gnaws at me. And when I heard Mr. Wooders get up and go through the litany of crimes, I got nauseous. I'm sure I'm not the only one that got nauseous here. And so let's not delude ourselves. He's not just guilty of 22 crimes. He's guilty of all 102 of those crimes. And he will live knowing that he is guilty of those crimes. These boys, these men are wonderful Christian men, but their death of their mother was used to steal, to enrich himself at their expense. And, you know, I heard when he pled guilty, I wasn't in the courtroom a couple weeks ago, he used the words, "I wrongfully obtained." That's not wrongfully obtained. He stole. Use the right word. He was a thief. He used the word and said, "I misrepresented." No, you didn't misrepresent. You lied. That's what we have to talk about in this courtroom. He was a thief, and he stole, and he lied to these clients, those that are closest to him. He lied to his law partners. He lied to his own brother. $3.5 million of the $4.3 million that was recovered on behalf of the death of Gloria Satterfield, he stole. He took. And you heard Mr. Wooders, there's Mrs. Pickney coming in the courtroom. You heard Mr. Wooders say, he stole every dime, everything, every last penny from them. And, you know, I heard it said that, you know, Alex said 2 weeks ago, I'm really happy that I'm finally able to be pleading guilty, that I've been wanting to do this since September of 2021. No. You need to hear, Your Honor, what he has done since September of 2021 in order not to have accountability and in order not to accept responsibility for what he did. When we had the bond hearing, after the bond hearing, his lawyer said in a gaggle that the Satterfields should look to others to get their money. They shouldn't look to Alex, that there's other people that are responsible for that. That was the start. We sued him civilly. He didn't answer the complaint and accept liability and deny damages, which he could have done. He denied liability. From 12/21 through May of 22, we, my partner Ronnie Richter and I, negotiated a confession of judgment, the same confession of judgment that was introduced as, I think, Exhibit 23 by Mr. Wooders, for $4.3 million. The money that he stole. He accepted responsibility. Did he? You'll hear in a second, he did not. But that took 6 months to get a simple confession of judgment that should have been signed immediately. The murder trial, Mr. Harpootlian, who's a wonderful lawyer, probably one of the best our state has ever produced, denigrated this guy on cross-examination, Tony Satterfield. Disrespected him. That's not a man that's accepting responsibility. That's not Alex Murdaugh accepting responsibility. After the trial ended in March, Mr. Murdaugh tried to add these two men to the federal court Nautilus action as party defendants. And it was said that if Nautilus wants any money, don't get it from Mr. Murdaugh. You got to get it from these guys. Because Mr. Richter and I, we recovered money, more than $7.5 million for them, but from other sources. If that wasn't enough, and Judge Gergel denied that motion, that wasn't enough to stop him. In the summer, they filed a motion to vacate the confession of judgment that he gave to them in May of 2022. He signed his name. He had two really good lawyers help him negotiate the terms. It was notarized under penalty of perjury. But then he went and filed a motion in our state court trying to vacate that confession of judgment. Judge Price denied it in August. Wrote an order that said, not happening. You gave it freely, voluntarily, without coercion or duress. You're a smart man. You knew what you were doing. Did it end there? No. They appealed it. They appealed that. Did it end there? No. We were supposed to have a trial, but for his plea 2 weeks ago. What happened next? They attacked the jury pool in Beaufort County. Incapable of being objective and fair because of all the publicity, the pretrial publicity. They didn't end it there. They attacked you. They filed a motion to recuse you from hearing the Satterfield case, saying that you, who was given your time, your sweat, and your blood, that you were conflicted, that you made any appropriate statements out of court. So the answer is no. He didn't want to do that in September of 2021, like he said 2 weeks ago, or was said in the courtroom. They did everything they could not to do it. But the calendar forced the plea. The 102 charges forced the plea. And there was all this about, pretrial publicity, that somehow I caused pretrial publicity and others and people who wrote about it and podcasters or whatever. Boy, is that rich. The defense attorney himself's a podcaster. He started a podcast after the murder trial. They went to CrimeCon and they talked for 2 days about the case.
Creighton Waters was at CrimeCon. Eric Klein.
They've done documentaries.
His band opened on the first
If
night.
there's any pretrial publicity, it's caused in part by them. And they still came before you to say that Mr. Murdaugh couldn't get a fair trial. These victims' lives have been permanently altered. Let's focus on them. These are people that lost their mother, that lost their sister. The Plyler sisters lost their mother and brother. Arthur Badger lost his wife and was left to raise 5 kids, and you heard $1.3 million. He didn't get that money for 10 years. Do you know what it would have meant to that man to raise 5 kids with an additional $1.3 million? Thomas Moore, that Mr. Wooders talked about, a state trooper. He stole $125,000 from a state trooper. The man needed the money to retire. He couldn't retire because he had to pay back medical bills because he didn't have the $125,000.
Please, Court, Your Honor, I hate to interrupt this, especially since I'm one of the best lawyers the state's ever produced. But he's talking about other people's clients now. I'd ask the court restrict him to his clients. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Bland?
These clients couldn't assess risk. These 2 men couldn't assess risk. They couldn't navigate their way through the system. Even though Jordan Jenks is a council member in Hampton County, he couldn't navigate his way through the system. He was best friends with Alex since 8 years old. Alex would have been the last person that Jordan would have thought would reach into his pocket and steal from him. He preyed on them like a wolf does a rabbit, Your Honor. Being a lawyer is everything to my partner and me. 35 years we've spent helping people. Every one of these lawyers here, Jim May, Justin Bamberg, Mark Tinsley, we do it because we love to help our clients. It's a sacred trust. None of us ever look at our client's case as a piggy bank. He did it for 16 years. Now, I even disagree with the state. The state tags the number at $8.5 million. No, the federal government tags it at $10.5 million he stole. It isn't a white-collar crime. It's a red-collar crime. It's a red-collar crime because it includes lack of remorse, just a systematic pattern of taking from clients, taking from the Satterfields, taking from the Jenks, taking from the Plylers, taking from the Mannings. It never stopped. The only reason it stopped was because of the boating accident, or it would have continued. Every client was transactional, and he has done more damage to our profession. All the lawyer jokes that we lie, we steal, we double deal, we go back in chambers with you, and we cut deals behind our clients' back. He sent us back generations. Our state was a laughingstock until you got a hold of that murder case. So now the Satterfields have a judgment. It's in stone. They withdrew their appeal. My clients want their money, Mr. Murdaugh. When do you plan on paying it? They want that $4.3 million. I will never forget the words you used at the end of the murder sentence about how he will get visitors at night. It pierced me. And I'm here to tell you that Gloria Satterfield will visit him, that Alania Plyler and Hannah Plyler's mother and brother will visit him. All of these people will visit him and let him know that it wasn't okay, that he that he used their trust and misused their trust, that he stole money from them. He will see them and they will visit him, and I hope they do. Because not only did he hurt these people, he hurt his whole family. There's good in his family. Not everybody's bad in his family. He hurt his son. He tarnished his son. His father's a thief, a liar, a conspirator, and a money launderer. So, in closing, I would like to thank you, Your Honor, for all the time you've given. I'd like to thank, again, the state. I want you to know that I am proud of the sentence. Yes, I wish it was more. We all wish it was more. But 27 years, doing 85% of his time, so that these fine people don't have to get up on the stand and be victimized over and over again, subjected to humiliating cross-examination. I think the finality of that is good, because I'm confident in a lot of the dominoes falling where they should. Don't forget, Judge Gergel still has a sentence coming, and it could be a consecutive sentence, so that if he lives long enough to get out of state court, forgetting about the double murder charge, but if he lives long enough and he walks out of state court and it's a consecutive sentence, he's going to walk to a federal prison. And I feel good that he will never breathe a fresh breath of air ever again. So on behalf of my clients, Your Honor, I thank you for giving me the opportunity. I think my partner wants to say just a very brief word. I appreciate your time.
Sir, thank you.
So that was Blandy.
May it please the court, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
I'm Ronnie Richter. I've been a lawyer in good standing of the bar of this state for 30 years now, Your Honor. I'm also a lifetime South Carolinian. What I want you to know about the clients that we represent is that they are the very best of us, that they are humble, that they're God-fearing, that they're honest, that they're hardworking. I've had a great career, but this has been the highlight of my career, to try to restore some faith that was destroyed by that man in the clients that we serve. I want you to know this too about the clients that we serve. None of them are victims. And I've heard the word said over and over. I'm even going to disagree with my partner. We don't have a victim in this courtroom. The word connotes that some accident has happened, that some misfortune has befallen them, that they are not victims. Prey, Your Honor. Prey is hunted. Prey is hunted by predators. Prey is taken when it's at its most vulnerable. But by any way of looking at what happened here, the people we represent are not victims. They are prey. And that man across the courtroom, by any measure, is a predator. And when I say to you that these folks represent the best of us, and I look across the aisle and I see Alec there, who was once a contemporary of ours, all I can think to myself is, for all the power, the privilege, the entitlement that he was born into, that, I mean, for God's sake, all that was ever asked of the man is that you wake up and be Alec Murdaugh every day. To have taken it so afoul is hard to reconcile. He's made his behavior complicated, but we figured out what he's done. He's tried to hide his true nature from us, but we figured out who he is. So the only question we're left with is why. And I'll suggest to the court this answer. It doesn't matter, because the only person who can answer that question is Alec Murdaugh, and he's demonstrated himself to be quite the cunning liar. Your Honor, in the opening, I heard Mr. Arputlian say something about T-shirts and bobbleheads, and that is unquestionably a shot at my partner, Eric Bland, and I do want to address that to the court. I want you to know, Your Honor, that my partner has gained some very well-deserved notoriety for his courageous representation of our clients, and that, yes, he has sold T-shirts and other merchandise, and that all of those proceeds have gone to charities, including the Wounded Warrior Project and others. No one came here today to sell a T-shirt. We came here today to finish a job. We came here today for justice. And we trust you, Your Honor, and we trust this court. We thank Creighton Walters and his excellent team for the work they've done in this case. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tony Satterfield would just like to say a brief word.
Oh, this is one of Gloria
Sure.
Satterfield's
Your Honor.
children.
I do have one request. Do you mind if I face that way?
That'd be fine.
Because when I talk to people, I like facing who I'm talking to. Thank you. I really don't have words. You lied. You cheated. You stole. You betrayed me and my family and everybody else. And you did it at a cost of my mom's death, first of all. A couple of Octobers ago, you wrote a half-hearted, I'm sorry letter, which was half-hearted because your actions did not follow through that you were really sorry. So I'm going to read you, I have an apology. I'm sorry that you feel like you had to betray us, steal from us, cheat us, and lie to us. I'm sorry that your family has to now go through what they're going to have to go through the rest of their life because of your actions, of what you did. I want you to know that I forgive you. I will pray for you every day, that God gets a hold of your heart. And you may not know the gospel, so I'm going to share it with you. The gospel is the death, the burial, and resurrection of Jesus. That's how people are able to forgive people and able to do right and able to pray for those who hurt them and do things to them. So my heart is with you. My prayers are with you, and I just wish the best for you.
Wow. That was powerful.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Your Honor. If you allow me to speak. And again, I'd like to address it to Alec. If that's
Wow.
Okay. A little louder, please.
I would like to speak and address it to Alec if you don't.
That mic adjustable.
Can you speak? Do you hear me?
I don't know. Speak in it, please.
Can you hear me now? Hear me
Yes.
now? Now you hear me? Okay. Alec, Gloria worked very hard for you for 20 years, you and your family. She loved Buster and Paul as her own. She loved Maggie, and she trusted and loved you wholeheartedly. She considered you and your family as her own family. To have her loyalty and love and trust betrayed by you is very hard for our family to understand. We just will never understand. And how you are able to profit from her death is especially hard for us to understand and cause unimaginable hurt to our family. The fact that if only you had given Tony and Brian just a very small portion of the money you stole from them, they would have appreciated it and been very happy while thinking that you had kept your word, done your legal duty, and looked out for them and their best interest. Instead, you chose to break the law that you had sworn to uphold, be greedy, and look out for your own best interest. Alec, in time, the wrong you did to so many people may be forgotten, but in hopes that Gloria and her pure heart, full of kindness and love, will not be forgotten, we started the Gloria's Gift Foundation in honor of Gloria and her memory by providing gifts to some needy children during Christmas so that Gloria will be remembered forever. And my heart goes out not only to my family, but today to hear all these families that you did wrong by, those children that you stole from, everything. They lost a mother, and you stole every dime from them. I just don't understand. Did you not have a soul? I don't get it, Alec. I can't understand it. And I thank God maybe that I don't understand it, because then I might be in the same situation as you. I just don't get it, and I guess I never will get it. So hopefully God will forgive you, because you're going to need forgiveness. I just don't know. I'm lost for words, Alec. You are not the person that I thought I knew. And you come from a good family, but you wasted your life. And I hate you did your family the way you did, because you do come from a good family. And I'm sorry you threw your life away. Thank you, Judge, for allowing me to address.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
And thank you for the state for everything y'all did for us. Find justice.
That's on behalf of the Satterfields.
The Satterfields, in my opinion,
Your Honor, I believe,
wow.
the next person to address the court would be Justice
Alex
Barron,
takes
who,
responsibility and
represents a number
punishment
of
for
victims
all
here,
of this.
including, Ms. P., Sergeant
All of
Thomas,
this.
Angel Gary, Jamie and Richard, Johnny Bush, Christopher Anderson, and Randy Drawdy. Mr. Pembroke.
May it please the court.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. Beside me is Miss Pamela Pinckney, and she would like to say just a couple of words. I'm reminded of a quote, and I think it's very fitting for today. It's that fairy tales don't tell children that dragons exist. Children already know that dragons exist. Fairy tales show children that dragons can be slayed. This process, from the beginning of the investigation through the state grand jury process, as Attorney Waters said earlier, a lot of people were afraid to participate, and it took courage. That grand jury process, this entire criminal justice process, not even thinking about the civil stuff, the criminal justice process, this has been the fairy tale. The children are the victims. It's the victims' family members. It's their closest friends. It's the people in our communities, whether you're talking about Colleton County, where some of the charges were pending, or Beaufort, or Hampton, or Allendale, or Bamberg, or Orangeburg, those communities, the children. Today is such an important day because these victims, their loved ones, the community members, everyone knew that dragons existed. They've seen it. They watch TV, they read the newspaper. Everybody knew that dragons existed. Today, this sentence, Your Honor, will show all of them that dragons can be slayed. And that is important in our society. With regards to the sentence, and it's tough to reach a decision and talking with the clients and explaining them what the options are, we support the sentence. It is a lot of time in the quote-unquote legal white-collar arena, but there's another aspect to this. And I understand, I get it. I think my clients, the victims, understand that this entire ordeal for a lot of people, not just in our communities in South Carolina, across the planet, this entire ordeal has been very entertaining to them. And I don't say that in a negative light. They're not involved. It wasn't their mother who died. They didn't have to bury their son, right? There's a reason Law & Order is one of the #1 most watched shows that's ever been on television. It is entertaining to them. But for a lot of people, this has been one of the worst nightmares, the worst fairy tale that anybody could ever actually have to live. And it needs to come to an end. Again, one of the most amazing things that I've seen from my clients is the degree of grace. What's the saying? Act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. And a lot of them live by that. There are people who would have every reason and right to hate this man for betraying them, for what he did to their families. It's not just about money. These are not just names on a piece of paper or commas and decimal points. This was money that they needed for their lives. I believe there were victims who ended up getting put out on the street when their money got taken. If they had a reason to hate him or hate anybody, they would be justified. But the degree of grace and mercy that they have displayed by forgiving him, because that is their religious belief, and they stand on that. They don't just say that. They don't just do what Alec did and say, I have your back, or say this and do something else. They stand on that. And although they have every reason to be selfish as it pertains to the pursuit of accountability, the pursuit of justice against an individual who truly does not deserve grace from the criminal justice system, does not deserve any benefits from the criminal justice system, they're still willing to think about other people. And Your Honor, you know I come from Bamberg County. We're one of the smallest, poorest counties in this state, filled with good, hard-working people, much like all of the people that Alec victimized. Folks in Hampton County, folks in Allendale County, where literally you try to wake up, do the best you can do, keep a roof over your head, food in your fridge, and a couple of presents under the tree at Christmas time. These victims are also thinking about those communities, their neighbors. The reality is that if Alec were to have individual trials on all of these charges, these victims' neighbors and friends and community members would also begin to suffer, because those local governments, poor little Bamberg County, Allendale County, Hampton County, they're the ones who have to pay for it. The victims recognize that. I, as an attorney, recognize that. And based on the plea and the time that Alec is going to be sentenced, we understand. And there is a degree of value in finality. There is a degree of value for not just these victims, but these communities and the criminal justice system, to be able to actually see the dragon be slayed in this courtroom and sentenced to prison for what will effectively be the rest of his natural life. It's no secret how tough SCDC is. People generally age a lot faster in there, and that's not something I celebrate. I don't say this excited and happy to be here. As a lawyer, I hate looking at Alec and seeing a former attorney sit there. I hate it. I hate to see somebody from our neck of the woods sit there. I don't celebrate that. This process has sucked. If it wasn't for the commitment to shining light on things and standing up for folks like Ms. Pinckney and others who needed it, I personally don't know how I would have made it through the process, because it's not enjoyable. And I don't think any decent person celebrates the downfall of another living, breathing human being, particularly somebody that they knew. But it's necessary. This has been a horrible, tragic, sorrow-filled fairy tale. And I think everybody is ready for it to come to an end, Your Honor. We'd like to thank Creighton Waters and the AG's office. They've done a wonderful job. And Your Honor, if it wasn't for the encouragement that Creighton and his team poured into people to let them know that the state had a true interest in accountability, I think that there would be far less charges, because people wouldn't have wanted to testify at the grand jury or have their name public or their face public. And there's a lot to be said for that. Today will make our system better. It will bring closure. And ideally, it will deter others. There's a whole nother discussion that can be had with regards to the fact that 27 years in prison is a very, very large, as you heard, if not the largest amount of time someone labeled a white-collar criminal get in prison. But that's more so of a American criminal justice system discussion compared to some of the other offenses. But here today, I think that is a win. My clients support finality here, and I'd just like to thank you for all your time and attention that you have given this particular case. And at this point, I think Ms. Pinckney has something that she would like to say. Ms. Pinckney.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon.
To Mr. Murdaugh, because I am an ordained evangelist and I have Christ in my life, the 23rd Psalm says, Thou preparest the table before me. No, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art is with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. And because of what you did to me, I thank God for giving me strength to get through what I went through. Because without God, I wouldn't be here. And to you, Alex Murdaugh, I never thought that you would betray me and did me and my family the way we did, the way it was done at a vulnerable time in our life, at our lowest estate. We was in a terrible motor vehicle accident, and you just took us for granted. But all I want to say to you is I forgive you from my heart. On this day and forevermore, my prayers and endeavors shall be with you, and God bless you.
Wow, there's a lot of forgiveness. These people are so...
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Such good people. I couldn't forgive.
The longer I do this, the more I realize I don't know. I don't practice in this courtroom in terms of criminal defense cases. I don't understand why the label of a white-collar crime is given to these crimes, to the predatory acts that befell all of these people. The money that they were owed was
Oh,
owed
this is Tinsley.
blood, sweat,
He's the
and
other
tears.
one. He is man.
He needed his money.
I'll speak later.
The Badgers, who I represent, 6 children, 2, 3, 5, 8, 9, and 11, are left with a single father, and he stole everything. And so I stand up here to say that I believe in accountability. I don't know that justice is served here, and I don't know that the punishment in this case is justified, and I don't want to be the odd man out. So I'll just keep it to myself and think it. Alec, you're a broken person. I don't think you're going to lie in bed at night and have people come to you. I don't think that those people matter. And I don't know when that happened, but clearly it happened where you matter more. And I feel bad for you as a result of that. I knew Paul and Maggie. I knew you. A lot of people thought they knew you. Clearly we didn't. I don't think you've always been this way, but somewhere along the way, you became broken. And you've justified it, and he's justified it every step of the way. And I stand up here, Your Honor, to simply correct the record. They didn't steal $1.325 million from my clients. The bank didn't help. The bank was complicit in every step of the way in enabling Alec Murdaugh to steal and pull this off. You asked about Eddie Smith. Eddie Smith was a check cashing scheme. Eddie Smith was being paid to cash checks, but that money is still out there, and he knows where it is. He didn't spend all that money on drugs. If he wants to be accountable, he wants to be contrite, he ought to tell these people where their money is. That's not going to happen. The same as he's not going to lay in bed at night and think about the wrongs and feel sorry for what he did. I don't envy you in having your job and the decisions you make. I recognize that there's value in finality. And maybe this is the right decision. I respect Your Honor. I respect this system. I stand up here merely to correct the record that my people have not been made whole. We are going to continue to seek accountability from the people that enabled him, that helped him, that were complicit in the thefts of their money. And so that's the reason I'm here today. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Our final person to address the court is Mr. Jordan James.
Jordan.
Evening, Your Honor.
Jordan
Hello.
James.
First of all, I want to say I duly respect your job in this entire case. I admire what you did.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Alex. I've been waiting on this day. I've been waiting on this day to look in your eyes. I wanted to sit down with you one-on-one. When I found out what you did, I just want to know why. I can sit here all, excuse me. Unlike a lot of these people here, these victims, I got a lot of intimate stuff that I could say. You remember all those wildlife hunts I had for law enforcement? Your entire family was the guest of honor. Mr. Buster, Judge Eldroff insisted on me taking care of them for the day. You don't know how many brownie points you got in my life from just that. I trusted you with everything. I knew I was going to break. I knew it.
Mr. Bland, can you reposition his mic so I can understand?
I knew I was going to break. Excuse me, I knew I was going to break. But I got some notes here I don't even know if I can go through. Our family got a deep relationship, man. You remember making a comment to me after I found out, after we discussed the possible amount this lawsuit was worth, and you made a comment to me, and you said, don't spend all this money foolishly. Tell me what you did with $20 million that you stole. Part of it being mine. And you know, I'm sitting there crying. I want everybody to, the judge, I need you to know. I'm not crying because of what he stole from me. I'm crying for what he did to everybody in the suit. These kids, these people dying. I didn't want to come up here and bash you, but I gotta ask you, what kind of animal are you? I can't even go over my notes. I'm not here to be your judge. Ultimately, that belongs to the good Lord and Savior. But may He have mercy on your soul. I didn't want to see you. When I saw you on TV in an orange jumpsuit, it hurt me. Still wasn't mad at you. Was this judicial system put together a system to deal with people that make bad choices? And my friend, you chose to make the choice you made. So I need the judge to know that I am full favor. I am in full favor of the court's recommendation for the 27 years. I can go back to us going to mediation. That you affected my wife. You chose to have Maggie deal with us those 2 days we were in Charleston in mediation. She catered to us hand and foot. You told me where to go and check into my room. We did. From that point, we never drove another foot. Neither did you. Maggie drove us everywhere we went. When all this came about, Paul, and Maggie, I couldn't believe it. I didn't believe it. But after sitting here today and hearing some of the devious things that you did to people, these victims here, changed my mind, bro. Once again, I ask you, what kind of animal are you? Boy, I gave you my all. I would do... The money you stole from me, you could have asked me for it, and I would have gave it to you if that's how I felt about you and your family. You didn't have to steal it from me, man. And I still, if there's any way possible, you set it up for me to be on your visitation list. I want to sit down with you. I want to look you in your eyes and talk to you when I can really talk to you. We got some intimate things we can talk about.
I would like that.
But why, bro? Why? Such a talent. Do you know what you just threw away? How talented you are? I don't understand. Mr. Harpoonian, nothing to do with you, but you made a comment earlier about the attorneys trying to sell bobbleheads and cups. Can you represent this man to sell those bobbleheads and cups to repay the victims that he stole from? Thank you.
Your Honor, that is all of the victims that wanted to address Your Honor today. I've obviously already spoken extensively. I know that we need to get to the defense and might have some final closing comments. But I will say this, Your Honor. I appreciate these folks speaking. I appreciate Mr. Bland and Mr. Richter, the passion they expressed. I appreciate and was blown away by Tony and his words. I appreciate so much Mr. Bamberg's words, putting in perspective some of the considerations that we have to consider in slaying the dragon, and having not only Mr. Bland but Mr. Bamberg and Mr. Tinsley having been there at the beginning of this investigation. I appreciate Mr. Bamberg putting in context the effect that these trials have on communities and have on the system. I understand Mr. Tinsley and some people saying, is 27 years and 85% enough? I understand you. I've wrestled with that over and over again as we thought about that. But we also have to realize the real human cost to multiple trials, because while this has become TV, it's not. It's not about that. It's not about trials to generate content. It's not about the notoriety. What it's about is getting justice like it's never been seen before, in a situation like it's never been seen before. And doing that in a manner that doesn't break the system in this county or other counties, and allows the state grand jury and law enforcement to focus on the next dragons that need to be slayed. And there's a lot of them. Is 27 years enough? I believe it's a practical life sentence, and I believe, like I said before, it's a unique sentence that no one's ever heard of for these types of offenses. But I echo what Mr. Tinsley said, and I understand his reservations, but I echo what he said when we talk about white-collar crime, because the effects are devastating, and I've handled a lot of white-collar crime, and I see those effects, and you heard it in the voices of these victims, and I've seen it in looking at their eyes. Because a lot of times with the violent crime, as horrible as they are, at some point you can process that some horrible predator broke in your house and did something to you. And it wasn't anything that you did. But with white-collar crime, it can be so devastating, lifelong devastating, because a lot of times that money can never be repaid. But the problem is that they start with trust. And that's different than being victimized in violent crime. And sometimes that can be harder, a lifelong scar that can be harder because of that trust that you placed in someone. So I agree with Mr. Tinsley, and we have always taken very strong positions on white-collar crime. And ultimately, there's a happy medium somewhere. There's nothing happy about the situation, but there's a medium somewhere. I think that you heard from Ms. P and Mr. Jenks and Mr. Tony Satterfield and Ms. Hadman. You heard that trust and how devastating that is. And so white-collar crime is just as bad. But Your Honor also knows that 27 years at 85% gets handed out for, less than that gets handed out for, unfortunately, for violent crimes as well. So this is a strong result. It is one that ensures finality. It is one that ensures that the system that has also been abused by that trust that was given to Alec Murdaugh when he was allowed to have that law license on the wall, that the system can start to heal as well. And it can focus on the next problems that it needs to address.
Out of the 100+ indictments I was assigned to handle, how many will be left?
This will resolve all of the state grand jury indictments. And so ultimately, Mr. Murdaugh agreed to a full factual basis as it relates to the crimes that he's pleading to the state grand jury ones. What we did was represent each victim with at least one and then sometimes multiple counts that are still outstanding.
Well, of course, the Chief Justice is not chief of just the state grand jury, but the entire court, unified court system. How many other indictments aside from state grand jury will remain if this plea is accepted against Mr. Murdaugh?
There will still be the county indictments for the side of the road that are still outstanding, that are not resolved by the state grand jury pleas here today. Unfortunately, I do not have that exact number in front of me. I think as it relates to Mr. Murdaugh, I think there's 4 charges that are outstanding.
What's proposed to be disposed of include all the state grand jury indictments only?
That's correct, Your Honor. This is a state grand jury plea here today.
And aside from the specific one, he is offering to plead guilty to, the remainder will be dismissed?
There is no deal on the table for those charges. The defense and the parties will discuss those after today, but this is to resolve state grand jury.
Referring the remainder of the state grand jury indictments will be dismissed.
Yes, sir. In return for his plea here today, he is agreeing to a full factual basis, except for the offered one that I mentioned before. So even though there are representative charges, he's agreeing to the conduct that's been alleged. Yes, he's pleading to 22, and the remainder will be non-prost upon successful conclusion of this plea.
All right, thank you.
Your Honor, the last thing I will say before I turn it over to the defense is on behalf of the Attorney General Alan Wilson, on behalf of the state grand jury team, on behalf of SLED and all the law enforcement partners that worked so hard, DOR as well, that worked so hard on this case, we would ask you to accept this plea and to issue the negotiated sentence of 27 years. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Harpootlian.
Please, the court, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
We would join the Attorney General in urging you to accept this 27-year guilty plea. It is, as he's pointed out, harsher than any defendant charged with similar crimes has ever received in the state of South Carolina. Alec Murdaugh stood before you and pled guilty, except for the one offered plea, guilty to this course of conduct. He has admitted that he is a thief. He has admitted that he lied about it. He has admitted that he victimized people that put their trust in him. That in no way entitles him to any mercy, if you will. But what it does do, I think that should demonstrate to the court, is that he's, rather than putting all these people through trials, he wants to put this behind him, understanding that there is a high likelihood on these charges alone he may never leave prison, although he has 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole for the murder charges. He would like to address the court and these victims, if Your Honor will permit it. He has a statement he'd like to read to the court, which should take about 5 minutes, and then, as I understand it, 10 minutes, I'm told. The only other thing we would say is this, that we, subsequent to today's proceedings, will attempt to work, and we believe we can work out a restitution amount, as the Attorney General's indicated to you already.
Do you all have an agreed number of days that he's entitled to credit for pursuant to Section 241340 of the South Carolina Code?
Your Honor, the amount that we've calculated is 505 days. That would be the time period from October 14th, 2021, when he was taken into custody on those initial 2 arrest warrants, through March 3rd, 2023, when he began to serve his sentence for the double murder.
Do you agree with those days as being the proper number that he's entitled to credit for, Mr. Harpootlian?
Your Honor, we would say that he gets credit up till today. It doesn't. Well, I don't understand why it would stop upon his conviction for the murders.
All right, Your Honor, give me 1 second. I'll find the statute. I've also had those discussions with SCDC. I think it's
241340.
241340. If Your Honor will permit me, I can bring it up with my phone. But the language of that is very clear, that you don't get to double dip, and that when he began to serve his sentence for the murders, that he no longer was also getting to claim credit for pretrial detention on other charges.
Well, Your Honor, I would suggest that you indicate he gets credit from October, whenever he was arrested, and if SCDC takes a position that he doesn't get credit for the time subsequent to his conviction on the murders. And by the way, if the murders were set aside for the sake of argument, which, as you know, we have a pending motion, then SCDC may interpret it some other way. But if it's an SCDC interpretation, we would just ask that you indicate that you give him credit from October 4th, subject to any SCDC interpretation.
We're talking with SCDC. I mean, it has that box on the form, as Your Honor is aware, that says credit for time served shall be given to be calculated by by SCDC. I don't have a sentencing sheet in front of me. And so in discussions with them, they said that that's what they would do. They would have the bond form, and that they would calculate that amount of days and then come up with that. And obviously, I guess, if down the road there needs to be an issue litigated as to credit for this delta between March and today, then Mr. Harpootlian and I can handle it. But I know that SCDC, in looking at this and looking at 241340, would say that this credit that is appropriate would be solely that time that he was on pretrial bond, and not given double credit when he's actually serving a sentence for double murder.
Your Honor, all we'd ask is that you comply with the sentencing sheet and say give credit for time served. And if there's a dispute between us and the Attorney General, more appropriate between us and the Department of Corrections, that's what administrative law courts are for. And we can deal with it there.
All right, thank you.
And Your Honor, at this time, I would ask that you allow Mr. Murdaugh to address the court and the courtroom.
Yes, sir. Mr. Murdaugh. Or Murdaugh.
Thank you, Your Honor. No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm gonna get over here and turn here. But thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to speak to the victims who spoke to me.
You need a hand free, or are you good?
Having a hand free would be helpful, but I can handle it without it.
Okay. You'll release one of his hands.
There you go.
Oh, this will be interesting. I do think he does feel remorse
Can I just take this free cup
for
off
these financial crimes. At least it appears that way to me. Even during the murder trial, it was my opinion that he
Thank you,
is
Honor.
remorseful.
Yes.
27 years
I think I'm all right with that.
that he's agreed to is unheard of in length.
I want each of you that spoke to know that I listened to you. I heard you. Your pain and your hurt is palpable. I get it. It's reasonable. And I promise you that it resonates with me. I understand it. I hope that the time will come when you can look back and know that despite the things that I did, that I care about each one of you. Because I do. I did terrible things. Each of you placed your trust in me. I was very proud of that. And I'm still today honored by that fact. That I deceived each of you. Terribly. I did terrible things. Things that thinking about right now caused me to be hurt, caused me to be disturbed. I mean, it is so important to me that you know how bothered that I am by the things that I did. And that's important to me. After hours, days, weeks, months of self-reflection, I know now that I took more and more and more pills because I was hiding, or attempting to hide from the reality of the things that I was doing to all of you. I do care about each of you. I have special recollections of my interactions with each one of you outside of the terrible things that I did. JJ. I felt as close to you as anybody. I still do. As anybody I can think of. We grew up together. And JJ, we hunted and fished together, alone, all over the low country. mean, I think we've talked to each other about everything that's important to both of us. And man, I hate the things that I did. Our daddies were the best of friends. I mean, I mean it. When I say that I care about you, as hypocritical as that seems in light of the things I did, it is so very true. I did care about each of you, and I still care about each of you. Michelle, I can't think of a bad day that a hug from Miss Carey and a kiss from Miss Carey that she would always give when I would see the two of you, because I never saw one without the other, that wouldn't make better. And it was usually accompanied by some sage advice or words of wisdom that were always so perfectly appropriate for whatever was going on. And I truly love her, and I love you. And I am so sorry. There's so many others that aren't here today that I hope will listen or be listening one day, like Dion. Dion's daddy, one of my dearest friends. I can still remember going to Dion's graduation, spending time with him. One more thing, JJ, going back, I do want to tell you as to how close I feel to you. My wife loved you, and you are absolutely right about everything you said, but you are dead wrong about one thing, and I would never hurt Maggie, and I would never hurt Paul. And it is important to me that you know that, because she did love you, and I hope you know that. And I hope you know that I mean what I say here today. Jamie, Richard, man, Damien's uncle and daddy were as close to me and my daddy as people can be. Lord knows, Tony, I went to elementary school, middle school, high school with your aunts and your uncles. Ginger, how many classes did we have? I mean, I've grown up with you guys. I mean, Tony, you, and Brian and Gloria are like a part of my family. And I mean that as hypocritical as that sounds, and me saying it, as hypocritical as it sounds, is the absolute truth. That does bring me to a point, and I will say that I said to Mr. Mr. Bland, Maggie and I raised our two boys with input from her mom and dad and input from my mom and dad. But we are the people who raised those boys, and us alone.
With the help of my sister.
Now, with that being said, Eric, with that being said, there is no person, period, that was more important to my family than Gloria was. To all of us. To me, especially to Maggie, to Paul, Lord knows he adored her. And I hope you know that. And Buster. And me too. I adore her. And I am so sorry. So sorry for the things that I did. And it is important to me that you know how sorry I am for the things that I did to each of you, all my law partners. There's no guys. And Danny, looking at you here kills me, knowing what I did. And you guys, we shared every facet of my life with every member of my family. And you are my family, Danny. And I have some more to say as we go along. We'll talk in some more detail. But to you, it is so important. Two things today that are most important to me is making sure that you do understand that I do care about each and every one of you. Number one. And number two, that I am so sorry and that I hate and am so bothered by the things that I did. And this brings me back to the text that came out in trial that I believe I sent to my paralegal, Christy, as I became better and less sick in rehab. One of the things that bothered me was knowing how I hurt the ones I love the most, the worst. And you all are included in that sentiment. I hope you know that. Tony, Brian, when I decided to make up the story and the claim about the dogs and Gloria, I did it with good intentions of helping you. I am so sorry that those intentions very quickly became selfish. And I am so sorry that I continue to involve you in my actions. And I am so sorry for everything that you, and I want to make sure the whole family knows that I am so sorry for everything that you have been through. And JJ, I really want to take you up on your offer that you proposed earlier. But I also hope that in time that each of you will be willing to talk with me, because I would like, as time moves on, to continue to reiterate just how sorry I am and just how important it is to me that you know that. So I'd like for you to think about it. Despite what was said in this courtroom today, I can tell you that through my attorneys, I have been asking for a plea offer since the very beginning. The very beginning. I formally pled guilty within 2 weeks of receiving the very first plea offer. That was in this courtroom however many days ago. But I formally pled guilty within 2 weeks of receiving the very first plea offer. And you've heard a lot of talk about the sentence. And I will tell you that the sentence that I'm agreeing to is harsher than I wanted. It's certainly harsher than I had hoped for. I will tell you that while I am pleading guilty for a number of reasons, all of which I believe are valid, none of those reasons is more prominent than my hopes that seeing me punished will help each of you heal and begin to be able to put this behind you. Because I can see it. I mean, I can see, I can feel, I know what you've been through. I don't know it, but I sense it. And I am so sorry. Now I want to talk to a few different people. I want to start with Buster. Buster. I am so sorry that I let you down. I am so sorry that I have not been able to be with you. During such hard times. I am so sorry that I did so many things that are so contradictory to every single thing Mom and I ever taught you and Paul. I am so sorry. I am so very sorry that the things that I did and that I am pleading guilty to here today have somehow caused some people, especially people on social media, and some people in the media, to somehow believe that based on the things that I did, that it is somehow okay to make false, baseless, unsubstantiated claims against you that are not only based on no facts and no evidence whatsoever, but are also not based on any semblance of reality whatsoever. And I am so sorry that you have had to go through that. I know, Buster, that you know that I have always been proud of you. I have never been more proud of you than I am for the way that you have handled all of the adversity that I put on you. Your whole family is proud of you. Mom is proud of you, and Papa is proud of you. I see in letters, emails, and messages that people give to my attorneys how impressed people are with the way that you have carried yourself through all of this. I want you to remember that rational, reasonable thinking people never make as much noise as haters do. I want you to continue to tune them out and continue to be the bigger person as you have this whole time. I want you to continue to stay positive. And stay the course. I love you so much. And I am so proud of you. Next, I'd like to address and speak to my mom, my brothers, my sister, my nieces and my nephews, who I love dearly, my aunts, uncles, cousins, the rest of my family. I am so sorry that I let each of you down. I am so sorry that I humiliated each of you. I am so sorry that I destroyed our family's reputation. With these terrible things that I have done. I am so sorry that my actions that I'm pleading guilty to here today somehow made people on social media and in the media think that it's okay to falsely attack two of the three best men that I've ever known. And that's my father and my grandfather. Two men who spent their life in service, helping others. Two men fully and wholly committed to justice. Two men who were most honest and most decent. And if they were here today, two men that would be devastated by what I have done. And you know that. And you know that. Next, I want to apologize to my mother and father-in-law, although I hate the term in-law, as they have always treated me like one of their own. Also to my sister-in-law, Mag's sister, Marion, her husband, my brother-in-law, my nieces, who I adore. My aunts and uncles and cousins on Maggie's side. I'm so very sorry that I let you down. And I am so very sorry that I humiliated you. And I am so very sorry. And I had Buster, back to this, that I have negatively affected Max and Pawpaw's memory and legacy. Also, apologize because I know and I know in my heart the actions that I am pleading guilty to here today and the stress from all of that contributed to the health issues of the third of the three best men that I know. Papa T. I think about it every day. How my actions have affected him all of you. And it eats a hole in me. Next, and I'm sorry this is taking longer than I had anticipated. Next is my brother Randy. I say that I am sorry to you because I know for a fact that the actions that I'm pleading guilty to here today have caused you terrible, terrible problems. I am so sorry that my actions alone, have caused you to be so wrongly and falsely attacked. And that my actions have caused your integrity to so wrongly be questioned. Because I know, and those who know you know, that you are, without a doubt, one of the most honest and high integrity people that's ever walked this earth. And I hate that the things that I have done have somehow made that an issue for you. I will challenge any negative-minded person as it pertains to Randy to go and find one single person, anywhere who truly knows you or who truly knows him, who doesn't have an ulterior motive, to tell you that he's not one of the most honest people that they've ever known. And I am so sorry that I went to such lengths to hide my addiction and my criminal actions from you, because I know that you would have helped me before things got so out of control. Next. I apologize the only one I see here. I assume you're the only one here. Talk to you as hard as it is. I am so sorry that I have caused so much trouble for people that I love so much. I love you, and I love each of you. I'm sorry I let you down. I'm sorry that I humiliated each of you. I'm sorry that I caused you to have to go through what you've been through. I'm sorry that I destroyed our law firm, that you know that I dearly love. And I'm sorry I let you down. I'm sorry that I've caused each of you to be questioned. Every one of you is not only one of the best lawyers that I've ever been around, but the best people that I've ever been around. Such good, such compassion, such smart, such giving, and such decent people. And I, again, am so sorry that I went to such great lengths to hide my addiction, and to hide my criminal acts from each of you. I know you would have helped me before things got so out of control. There's no doubt in my mind. I say to Johnny, that he was a great mentor to all of us. I learned so many good things from him. I am sorry that I failed him. I hope one day that Johnny will listen to this, so that he will know how much I miss him, and I miss our chats, and he'll know what I'm talking about. Danny? They don't make enough good words for me to accurately depict how I feel about you. You know the things that you helped me through. And you know how you helped Maggie. When she didn't think she had anywhere else to turn concerning her son. I hope you know how special you are. To me, especially. But also to Buster for all you've done. And I mean it when I tell you that it hurts me so much to know that I have disappointed you. And I know that that is an understatement. I now apologize to every single person who cares about Maggie and about Paul, because I know that the things that I did, that I'm pleading guilty here today, allowed SLED and the Attorney General's office to focus on me and not to pursue the person or the people who hurt and killed Maggie and Paul. And I am so sorry for that. To each one of you, and to those who might be listening, who are not here, I want to reiterate again just how sorry I am. I want to try to make sure to look at each one of you right now so that hopefully when you leave here, you will know and believe that I was sincere in my hopes that you understand how much I care about you and how sorry I am for the things that I have done. I'm still, as I said, after a lot of reflection, I'm still not sure how I let myself get where I could do the things that I did to all you people that I care about. I'd like to say to any and everyone who's suffering from addiction, please get professional help. Don't let pride get in your way the way I did. I had people who loved me, who tried to help me. Many, many more people who I know would have helped me. I had resources. I had access to more resources. And I still couldn't beat it. I tried many, many times. It's just too hard. I say, please get professional help. I'm very proud, as I stand here today, to be 812 days clean. But I didn't do it soon enough. Please get help now. There are so many wonderful facilities out there with professional people who care and who do wonderful, wonderful work. I would like to say a special thank you to the people at Evolve Recovery Rehabilitation Center and at Sunrise Detox for all the wonderful care that they gave me. Every single day, I utilize the processes that they taught me, and I use the tools that they gave me in hopes that tomorrow I can add another day to my total. Lastly, I want to thank the men and women who have sent me letters, emails, and given messages to my attorneys with genuine messages of support. They mean more to me than you could possibly know, and I appreciate it. Last thing I want to say, Your Honor, is that I am fully committed to trying to be a better person. I'm going to do as much good as possible and help as many people as I can while I'm incarcerated. I remain fully and wholeheartedly committed to finding a way to somehow make those who love me proud again in some small way. I appreciate each of you talking to me. I appreciate each of you looking at me while I'm talking to you. You can tell that you're listening, and I appreciate it. I'm going to say one more time, I hope you know, I hope you believe that it is heartfelt. And the two things that I hope you take away today are, number one, that I care about you, and number two, that I hate the things that I did, and I am so sorry. And Your Honor, I thank you for letting me address you and for letting me address the victims. Thank you so much.
Sir.
Well, I don't know about you, but I believed him. I'm not sure if we are still running
We're going
live.
to take a break now for 45 minutes.
There is going to be a 45-minute break. I got this, like, it says...
For a 45-minute lunch.
They're going to go on
We'll be
lunch.
back
So,
at 2:47, thereabouts.
So what I'm going to go ahead and do without too much fanfare is end this live stream. He just concluded. I'm going to just do a browser reset, but like, you know, the video is coming in fine. Restream looks like it's still recording. But all of my separate windows just monitoring things kind of gave me the spins. So we are on recess for 45 minutes. Like I said, I believe he is remorseful for these financial crimes. I believe he's embarrassed. I believed all of the things that he said. He is taking a 27-year plea deal, which is extremely long for the financial crimes. And I think that's his way of trying to make right. He wholeheartedly states that he had nothing to do with Maggie and Paul's murder. So, I don't know. I never thought the state proved that he was guilty of premeditated first-degree murder and solely put the gun in his hands for both Maggie and Paul. I figured, you know, it was probably a result of his actions. But that's for another live stream. So I'm going to cut this off because I'm going to probably need 45 minutes. I'm so sorry. I had, you know, those crackers that you dip in like the little fake cheese. That's all I had up here. I'm starving. So again, thank you so much. We'll be back in 45 minutes, which I'm assuming, well, I guess I shouldn't say I'm going to assume how long it's going to take, just simply because this is even taking a long time. But thank you very much, and we will see you in 45 minutes. Where is my mouse? There it is.